In the beginning, God created one woman and one man. After it was all said and done, he looked at all of his creation and he called it good. But from there, it all rapidly went downhill. The first murder was committed by Adam and Eve's first son, Cain. Humans began to worship false gods, created weapons, and remained oblivious to the decay they existed in. Interestingly, humans were not the first creatures God created. There are also human-like beings called angels. At some point, 33% of these angels decided to not listen to God anymore. So, God gave them the earth to control, where they have been wreaking havoc for the last 200,000 to 300,000 years or so. During this period, they mated with human women and produced children. It's kind of like when you have a lion and tiger mate, and you get a liger. We call them Neanderthals. Clearly, we don't know all the science behind how this works, but using our ability to critically think, it's obvious the angels must have some sort of physical body, and they must be genetically similar to humans. If it looks like a human and speaks like a human, it must be human-like. Once the offspring of these angels and humans died, they turned into disembodied spirits that possessed humans to interact with the world. The Bible doesn't give a lot of camera time to these fallen angels and demons. They're just not important to the overall focus of the story, which is your relationship with God. For the most part, you just need to know they're there. And as long as you have your eyes focused on God, He'll deal with them. But if you did want to know more, there's the Book of Enoch, which gives us a glimpse into the lives of these fallen angels. This book is full of half-truths. According to the Book of Enoch, Neanderthals were not just wide and big, but they had huge appetites. They ate everything. They consumed so much that they resorted to cannibalism. The archaeological evidence confirms this. We have proof of cannibalism taking place in the caves where Neanderthals were located. Archaeologists in Spain found Neanderthal remains that showed the markings of having been butchered. Some of the skulls were filleted. There was a leg bone that had been smashed to retrieve the bone marrow. This didn't only happen in Spain either. There were butchered remains found in Belgium and Croatia as well. Neanderthals just didn't have the genetic material to always practice self-control. When testing certain genes, geneticists found that while humans had 63% of the genes they tested dedicated to self-control, Neanderthals had only 33%, which is right around where a chimpanzee would be, at 25%. Changes in the climate, their extreme appetites, and their small population size doomed them. As the Book of Enoch states, the earth judged them. Some of this is probably slightly exaggerated. There is proof that Neanderthals buried their dead and did care for their sick. But, similar to humans, hard times brought the worst out of the Neanderthals. And, contrary to the skeleton record, footprints in France showed that Neanderthals could have been taller than we think. Some of the footprints left behind in the sandy mud of the Le Rosel Creek correlated to someone with a height of 175 centimeters or 5 feet 9 inches, which would be average in the modern world. Older archaic human relatives were even taller. There is a possibility that there were one or two extremely strong, shack-sized Neanderthals walking around. It is probably not a coincidence that humans did not successfully migrate out of Africa until the Neanderthal population was on the verge of extinction. Initially, the Neanderthal population would have been tiny and would have been unable to compete with the already established human groups in Africa. But in Europe and Asia, the Neanderthals could flourish. Additionally, the Neanderthals had the benefit of being hybrids, and hybrids have been shown to experience genetic mutations more rapidly than non-hybrids, giving the Neanderthals an advantage in the foreign colder climate in Europe and Asia. The Neanderthals were extinct for around 30,000 years before the biblical flood happened. Interestingly, the archaeological story of the flood seems to be slightly different from the Bible. There was no global flood. There is plenty of archaeological evidence of people existing in Africa, India, Europe, and Australia throughout the archaeological records. Despite this little fact, the flood that destroyed Noah's world was by no means small. Megafloods were catastrophic events that changed the shape of the landscape in a matter of days. Some locations were covered in over 30 meters, or over 100 feet of water. The scars left on the land are breathtaking reminders of our smallness. After it was all said and done, the angels responsible for mating with humans were bound and left in the abyss until the end times. During the last days, The four chained angels of the abyss will be released and allowed to vent their frustrations on all of humanity, resulting in the death of 33% of the human population, a bleak future for those who will have to live through it. Currently, the church is so divided that it is impossible to hear the voice of our God. The scientific community and archaeological records can help us better understand what is happening in the scripture. The flood wasn't about killing off humanity for their wickedness. It was about the evolution of humanity. Multiple asteroids struck the Earth and completely changed the climate. Most of humanity was forced to learn how to farm. It is because of these hard times that humanity would rediscover God. Our ancestors could only dream of understanding the universe like we do today. Sometimes blessings come with the storm. We should use the knowledge God has blessed us with to the best of our ability.